Hello, everyone. Listen, welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited that you are joining us for the first episode in this amazing
Let's
week
do it.
of The Black Man Made Well.
Let's
Yes.
go.
Hello. And I am your host, and my co host with me tonight, I am Martina Sellers, your mental health hygienist. And you are, sir?
I'm John Henry Scott III, and I've run a company called Chart to Heart Incorporated.
Yes, sir. Listen, John, are you excited?
I'm super excited. This is an important week. It's a monumental week. It's a
Yes.
historic week. Let's do it.
Let's do it. That's right. Listen, give us a shout out. Let us know where you're calling from. Come on, Jerron, how you doing? Let us know what you're doing. We are so excited. Dr. Yvette, how are you? Listen, share this link. Share this with every black man that you know. Call your brothers, your uncles, your daddies, your husbands, your misters, and
The ones you love and the ones you're working on loving.
That's
as
right.
well.
That's right.
Let's get
That's
them
right.
all in the face.
Listen, I'm so excited. John, when we talked about this thing called The Black Man Made Well, why is this so important in a day and age that we're living in today?
Yeah, because the reality is we often lack the space by which we can hear, and we can be empowered, and we can be heard about things that really matter to us. So as a result, underneath the surface, lodged in the crevices of our psyche somewhere, there's this scream, this holler, this yell, and this desire to be seen and to be heard. And so this matters because we get an opportunity to create a safe space.
That's key.
To talk about some things that often we don't talk about.
We don't talk about. And that's so important for men to have a safe space, because a lot of times people say, well, you don't ever share your emotions. Well, the question is, do we have safe spaces for RJ? What's up? For us to really share those powerful moments without judgment.
There you go.
Can we go there?
There you go.
Without judgment.
There you go. And I think the cool thing that what you're going to see tonight,
you're
going to see throughout this entire week, and we've got a power-packed week, it's not only are we just going to hear you and talk, talk to you, but we've got things we're going to give you practical tools.
That's right.
We're going to put things in your hands, things in your toolbox that you can actually use that'll help you navigate through this world. So we're jazzed about it.
I agree. So when you're talking about The Black Man Made Well and this whole conference this week, John Henry, share with us some of the purpose. What has been, because we've been working hard on this. And
we have.
Can I say this? This was made and this, what you're going to see this week, by black men.
That's right.
For black men.
That's right.
Executed by black men.
That's right.
Yes. Produced by black men.
That's right.
Now women folk, we love you, but what we did not want to have was women dictating. Come on, that's a whole
the
other
narrative.
Thank you.
The narrative.
The narrative, yes. So, John Henry, talk to us about the purpose of this week.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really connected to what it is that we talked about earlier, Marty, and all the brothers and the people who love us and things like that.
Yes.
But really, to sum it up in one simple line, is we wanted to create a safe space by which we can educate, we can empower, and we can equip the black man in certain focused areas. And so in just a few minutes, we're going to talk about what those focus areas are. And we believe that an outcome on the other side of this week is that we have men who are made more well than they were now in this
That's
moment.
right. And the narrative, I say this all the time, part of what I do with the Mental Health Matters with Marty. Listen, I am enough.
That's right.
I am enough already as a black man because I am here.
That's right.
And too often we don't feel like we're enough. And I love that. Educate, equip, and empower. Excellent. That's so cool. So let's go through what we're going to be talking about all this week. Tonight we are going to be talking about the stigmas, and we have an amazing panel on here tonight talking about stigmas. We have Dr. Tristan Webster, amazing psychologist. We have Dr. Robert Brown, college educator. We have Dr. Jackie Smith, psychotherapist. And we also have Dr. Danielle Hill. Listen, let me tell you, these brothers, not only are they smooth.
Yeah.
Yeah. These are smooth brothers. I don't know, but listen, they smooth. But you know what? They meet us right where we're at.
That's right.
They meet us right where we're at.
That's right.
Yeah. Can you talk about Tuesday night?
Absolutely. Tuesday night's going to be from yelling to yoga. So we've got 3 black male yogis.
Yes.
Who will be really kind of sharing about mindset,
Yes.
about yoga, the importance of it, how we can use it really as an alternative to
Yes.
help us deal with some of the pent up aggression
That's
that
right.
just comes with being a
black
man. Period. And so you may or may not have 2 students that's going to be
don't give it away yet.
But come check us out tomorrow.
Right,
it's
right.
going to be interesting to see. So
It
that's
is.
Tuesday.
That's Tuesday. On Wednesday, so grateful about this next panel, talking about self-care, mental health and self-care for black men. Listen, that panel there is off the chain.
Yeah.
They off the chain as we're going to talk about why is it so important for we as black men to take care of ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
You know, why is it so important that we say, listen, I don't have the psychological fortitude. I don't have the capacity right now to deal with this. And because we don't take care of ourselves enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've been taught to bear the burden, but what we have not been taught is how to let some of that go, take care of ourselves, to get ourselves right, body, mind, and soul. A lot of times we can get the physical right, but we got that mental right. It's depleting everything we got.
That is so good.
Yes.
And the cool part about that,
Right.
it's really self-care from an individual
Yep.
level, but also as a collective.
That's right.
Brothers taking care of
brothers.
You make me better, man.
That's right. Likewise, you make me better.
So that's part of my self-care. Thursday.
Thursday. Talk to us about Thursday.
Thursday is going to be an incredible night. We've got talking about family and fatherhood. We've got some of the greatest fathers that I know.
Right.
One of the greatest fathers that I absolutely know, my best friends on this panel. But we've got Dr. Jerron Clark, Dr. Ed Rice, Dr. Alfred Elliman on here. And we're really going to talk about the reality of being a father in a traditional sense.
Yes.
We're going to talk about the reality of being a father where you have stepchildren.
That's right.
We're going to talk about the reality of being a father when you are no longer with the parent.
Right.
And so the truth of the matter is that we really want to celebrate fatherhood
That's
that
right.
night.
That's right.
By black fathers and really call that out. So I'm really jazzed and pumped about that one.
Yes.
And then what's happening in the daytime?
In the daytime.
on Thursday?
That's your favorite. I won't let you kick that one off.
Thursday,
You love that one.
listen,
Yes.
Thursday in the daytime, we will have the young men made well.
That's right.
This is the thing that I am really, really, really just through the roof about. We've got ages 12 to, we actually changed it to ages 12 to 24.
And well,
right?
that's going to be the one that we're going to do in June.
That's June. So this one is 12 to 18.
18, yes.
We're going to actually go into the Youth Justice Center, and we are going to take a hybrid of what we're doing all week, and we're going to spend time with this younger generation, let them know that we see them, that we hear them. We're going to tell our stories.
That's right.
And we're also going to educate, empower, and equip them. And I was talking to one of my buddies. I was saying I could only imagine if I would have seen me when I was 13.
Exactly.
So I'm jazzed about that.
And it's so important that we not forget about our younger generation coming behind us, and that we provide the proper model for them. And then on Friday, we are talking about the black man made well through finances and business. And that's so important because so many of us have so many ideas, but we don't have the proper, we're not taking care of our finances. We have not taken care of gotten great business models and everything like that. And that's why we have to make sure that we get this model. And then we want to also do what we call system involved, because a lot of times when we're dealing with systems, we allow the systems to beat us up. And so we're going to have a panel there helping our black men navigate through the systems, through child support, through probation, and some of these other things that happen with us. So y'all, this is going to be an action-packed week. And please, y'all, don't let this, just because it's free. So now that brings me to our sponsors, because this could not have happened without our amazing sponsors. John Henry, can you share with us our sponsors for this event here?
Well, I'll share with you one of them that's quite obvious. Marcel Consulting and Mental Health Services. We're very honored to sponsor here. But then also Riverside University Health.
Yes, Riverside University Health and Behavioral systems.
And behavioral
so we are
systems.
so grateful for Riverside because they are the major donor in this to make sure that this goes out. So shout out to Riverside University Health Systems in collaboration with the African Americans Family Wellness Advisory Group, which is a part of that, because we want to make sure that we are in the IE. So don't y'all sleep on the IE, that in the Inland Empire of Southern California, that we are working on making the black man well. So we want to give a shout out to them. And also from who originated this, Ms. Linda Hart and the African American Health Coalition. So we would not be here today if it had not been for those amazing organizations standing behind and believing in the wholeness of the black man.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Action-packed week, John Henry.
Full week.
So again, it's not too late to register. It's not too late to like and subscribe to the Black Man Made Well YouTube channel. Don't sleep on this, y'all. Get everyone. Listen, call people now because we're going to be on here. We're still dropping knowledge. It's not too late to call, chat, Google some people, get them on the phone. Listen, we can talk about all the bad news, but we don't know how to talk about good news.
That's true, right? And you know, this weekend, everybody go have a Super Bowl party, right?
So set it off right.
Boom. That's it. That's it, right? We have the Black Man, a BMMW.
BMMW. That's
watch
right.
party sometime this week. You know, so let's kick it off with tonight, right?
Yes.
And so as we are acknowledging this week to be African American Mental Health Week,
that's right.
It's very important that we kind of find the connecting thread through all of the topics that we just shared.
Yes.
And one is that there's stigmas. There's stigmas around yoga. There's stigmas around mental health. There's stigma around self-care and finance around our young people. So
Fatherhood.
100%.
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
So we want to spend some time tonight really getting a better understanding from some experts here on our panel. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce Dr. Tristan Webster. Dr. Tristan Webster is a psychologist. He's quite brilliant. And he and I have had an opportunity to really spend some time in preparing for tonight. And I believe that just let's bring him up and let's have a conversation with him before we go into the full panel. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Tristan Webster. Doc, what's going on? How are you, man?
Doing all right. I'm really excited to be here.
Excited. We're happy to see you,
man. Good to see you, man. You're looking well. How's the family?
Family's great. Family is great. You know,
excellent.
It's what we do this for, right?
That's exactly. Exactly. And you know, being a new dad, you know, seeing this through the lens now, not just of yourself, but being a new father is so important. So how's the little one doing?
Dude's a tornado. I was walking through the house today just looking at all the little, like, we have this whole section of just clear, clean house, and then we got like toys, just like all in piles, just all over the place. It's just
can I say this? Welcome to fatherhood.
Yeah, there we go. You know, I wouldn't have it any other way, though. Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Beautiful. Black men raising their children.
Let's do it. I've been doing it for 26 years.
That's right. I've been doing it for 31.
Man.
Don't tell no one.
Man, we good. All right, let's do it.
Let's jump right in.
Let's get right into it. So, Dr. Webster, why don't you set this up for us? When we start talking about stigmas, what are stigmas? What are stigmas within the context of just being a black man?
That's right.
Okay, so I think, you know, we're all sort of familiar with different stuff that happens to be stigmatized. You know, there's a lot of stuff that we'll bring up as, you know, like this thing or that thing is just like weird, or it's just like, nah, I'm not going to do that. You know, whatever kind of brings that, like, nah, you know, all that type of stuff is pretty much what a stigma is, right? Mm-hmm. If you want to define it, we're really looking at something that's like thought of as negative, for our purposes in particular, by a group, right?
Yes.
You can stigmatize on an individual basis, but we're really talking about it as a group in this case, right? Mm-hmm. So making that really simple, the way that I would think about it is, you know, if it's something where somebody's likely to say he's not acting right, you know, there's something wrong with that dude. Like what they're talking about, the focus of whatever that topic is, that's going to be a stigma, right? Mm-hmm. Anything you think is going to get your black card pulled, that's a stigma, right? if you hide something away from other people because you're like, I don't know how other people are going to feel about this or how they're going to think about it, different stuff like that. Or even if you don't necessarily make that connection, because you might not be aware of all of them. Just things that kind of make you uncomfortable because just, I don't know about that, right? All that is pretty much what a stigma is. Whatever the topic is, that is the stigma.
Wow.
So Dr. Webster, let's bring that in. Give us one or two examples, one or two kind of clear examples of a stigma.
Stigmas.
So this runs a big spectrum because we got little tiny things that are stigmatized. We got huge things that are stigmatized, right? So little tiny thing, right? Going camping, right?
Yeah.
Something like going camping for Black people in some cases is like, oh no, that's some old like white people stuff, right? I say stuff because my mom's watching. So hi, Mom. Anyway, so it's something like that. It's like, and it's not everybody in our culture who would say like, no, I'm not for that. Like that's not cool. We're not going to do that. But there's still this little thing where it's like there's this stereotype that Black men don't camp or Black families don't camp, something like that. And so there's this little edge like, no, we're not, that's not okay. That's not for us. Right.
Oh,
and
that's good.
That not for us. That's the stigma. Right.
Yes.
And then on the flip side, I'm going to go for a really, really big one. And listen, not everything we're going to say here is going to be entirely comfortable, but I'm going to bring up something that's important to think about.
We have to deal with it. You're right.
We got to deal with it. So something that's really heavily stigmatized in Black culture in particular, gender identity, sexual identity, that type of stuff, right? There's huge stigmas around that where, if you don't identify with the gender that you were assigned at birth, then, there's something wrong with you, right? Or if you're anything other than heterosexual, something's wrong with you, right? So those are some very small and very big examples of things that within our culture get stigmatized.
But even when you're talking about that, you're talking about masculinity as well, the definition of masculinity, in those regards. And if you're not an alpha male all the time, then you have to be soft or weak, and that's clearly not the case in so many situations.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. Stigmas are serious, right? And I think that often what happens, I don't remember who the original author is, but I know Nas said it in that rap, "If I Ruled the World," right? He said, people fear what they don't understand. They hate what they can't conquer. I guess that's just the theory of man. And as I start thinking about stigmas, I think it's very important for us to try to understand why they even exist. So, Dr. Webster, I guess that's my next question is, why do stigmas exist?
That's good.
Oh, it's simple. Like, let's see if we have the graphic to go along with that. We can demonstrate a little bit of how that right there, that's why they exist. All that. Okay. This is my theory, at least. Okay, so this is my hypothesis.
Okay, tell to
all
us.
of these factors go into the reason why stigmas exist. And so let me just say this, that the reason why I want to show you this is because we can't get into all the bits and pieces of why stigmas exist. And we can't get into all the bits and pieces about exactly why they're problematic, exactly what the issue with them is, all that fun stuff, right? We're only going to be looking at kind of this center triangle. If you look in the middle there, intergenerational trauma, and right outside of that, stereotypes, stigmas, and bias. That's really where we're going to be focusing right now.
Right.
But there's a lot of stuff that weighs into the way that stigmas are built by society at large. There's just a lot of factors that weigh into this. And I want to say side note, because it is important to make sure that this is represented properly. This is my hypothesis, right? This is not necessarily like scientifically tested. We don't have effect sizes for each one of those lines, blah, 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 whatever, Don't worry about that. What's important here is really understanding that there are a lot of factors that go into it. And
exactly.
I've tried to bring this down to 6 kind of like central points to really kind of deliver kind of what it means for the Black community in particular as to why they exist, right? So hopefully this can be like a quick takeaway as to what's going on with stigmas for us, right? So just to start with, Black people in America have relied on values like take faith, for instance, right? Community support, careful conduct, how it is that you act, what it is that you do, where it is that you go, different stuff like that for survival. Like it's that critical.
Yes.
4 centuries.
Yes.
It's not right now. It's centuries old.
Yes.
Right? Black people have learned to identify potential threats from other people because it's meant survival. Right? Black people teach one another values, community support, and careful conduct because it matters for everyone's survival. It actually impacts an entire community, how it is that we have to deal with our day-to-day, depending how each one of us is conducting ourselves in the world, right?
Right.
It's huge weight to carry, right?
Right.
So what we're taught about conduct and values have a lot to do with centuries of trauma. This is the trauma that we're talking about. That's in the center there, the intergenerational trauma. We'll get a little bit more into that in just a minute. But, it has to do with a lot with centuries of trauma, not necessarily just exactly what's actually factually right or wrong. And I want to make that distinction. There is a lot of it having to do with trauma means that it's not necessarily actually coming from what's actually factually good for us, even though it might actually feel like it's actually factually good for us, right? It comes down from years and years and stuff, right? Fear and necessity, trauma. Right. Trauma.
All this. I love
can
it.
convince
Trauma.
us of things, right?
Right.
Fear and necessity translates really to trauma. They go back and forth to one another, right? They can convince us of things. And so it's important really to have another look, but we're not taught how to. We're not really taught how to look at our perspectives and really weed them out as so, we do this because it's actually good for us versus we do this because we were told to do this. And we were told to do this because that's how things are. Right.
Yes.
And finally, Black people often have less access to ways to reduce trauma, and as a consequence, fewer ways to think about things differently.
Dr. Webster, you're talking now. You're talking. Listen, I need y'all in the chat. Come on. If you agree with us, put a 5 up. Give me some claps. Do something so we know that you agree with us. Yes. Come on. Community trauma. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Dron.
You know what? I was sitting there and I was thinking, Dr. Webster, you said something that was so significant. You said that oftentimes we're not taught to.
Yes.
We're not taught to. We're not taught to or taught how to deal with the trauma.
Yes.
And so as a result, it's very difficult to really kind of eradicate the impact of stigma in our day-to-day experience. And I think that that's really what we want to do tonight, right?
Yes.
Is that we've got this incredible panel.
Yes.
That I don't know about you. I'm ready to get straight to the panel.
I know they're
right?
So good.
Because we've got so much that we want to talk about. And I want to hear from the panel because I feel like that was the segue there.
That was actually a segue.
It's the taught to. We're often not taught to.
Yeah, because Dr. Rita Walker says it this way, and I know you'll agree with me in that regards. Thank you, Keisha. Listen, she says that out of University of Houston, we have so normalized trauma in our community that we can no longer recognize when we are in crises.
Yeah.
Woo! That's so powerful.
It's fascinating, right? It's almost as if the culture that we live in glorifies it, like who's doing the worse off, right? You're as hard as I am, so we wear our trauma as a badge of honor.
Yeah,
fascinating. Let's hear from the
let's bring them. So let's bring them on, and Dr. Webster, we're gonna still continue with that, but let's bring them on as well. Listen, from let's bring on Dr. Robert Brown. Yes, Dr. Brown, come on to the show. How you doing, Dr. Brown?
You're on mute, Dr. Brown.
Doctor, you're on mute.
Okay, now I'm even better.
There we go.
There you go. Listen, has Dr. Webster been spitting truth to us, man?
Hey, I love everything that he was saying. He was on point. He was on point. We do have this bevy, this collection, this plethora of stigmas in the Black community that are given to us intergenerationally that we have to find a way to work out from. Things that are being done to and around us.
Yes.
And we haven't been taught how to take care of ourselves.
Love that. Thank you, Dr. Brown. Let's bring on some of the more panel with that, if you don't mind. Listen, Dr. Jackie Smith. Dr. Smith.
Good evening.
Doc, how you feeling?
I'm great. Thank you for having me here.
Hey, glad to have you, man. Listen, Dr. Webster has definitely began this panel with us and everything. Talk to us about what you're talking about, trauma too. tell us your thoughts on trauma in the Black community, especially for Black men.
You know, what immediately comes to my mind is that we have to ask ourselves the question, what benefit am I to others in my afflicted state?
Yes.
Right. And so, being that everyone has experienced some level of trauma looks very different for everyone, right?
Yes.
It's just that within our communities, we've tended to operate under this guise of what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yep.
And so you attach secrecy
Mm.
to my
Yes.
trauma, right? I'm already dealing with shame, which is guilt,
Yes.
right? Which is not necessarily my shame to carry. And so I go through life carrying the secrets, carrying the shame,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And what am I supposed to do with that? Because I
So
haven't been
good.
taught. I haven't been taught, you know. And then the other thing that I'll say, you know, briefly is that some people prefer you to be afflicted because they
Come
can
on.
benefit from you. They can
Well,
benefit from your affliction, right? But it's when you begin to get healed that you're no longer beneficial. So then that brings up the issue of, for a lot of Black men, a lot of our relationships are transactional.
Don't do it. Stop.
Right.
Stop.
We got it. He about to
Stop.
go there.
Stop,
Listen.
Dr.
We got one more to bring on, so we can listen.
He about to set the whole place on fire.
Exactly. You know, and he just, as he drinks his, as he takes a drink, I ain't mad at you. Listen, let's bring on Dr. Danielle Hill. Dr. Hill.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening. Dr. Hill, listen, Dr. Jackie Smith almost tried to set it off.
Listen, I might be in the Dr. Brown. I was taking so many notes, I kind of missed some stuff. I don't know. Maybe I'm not in the right place because y'all talking good. Like I feel I'm in class.
Right. Talk to us, Dr. Hill. What do you feel about the traumas?
Well, so Dr. Brown, you hit something that kind of just resonated with me, and I can't shake it for some reason. You said that Black people, they lack value. We lack value by the stuff that we see in our communities every single day. Why is it a badge of honor, or why is it killing each other becomes commonplace? I mean, it becomes so mainstream now. You know, you can't turn on the news without seeing at least 3 Black men have died over the 24 hours. Why is that a badge of honor? We don't value life. We don't value what's in us because we don't have people that's depositing in us. We're always got people that's taking from us. So if you're constantly taking from me, I can't value anything. I talked about, you know, the communities that we live in. If this is all we know, then guess what? We're not going to do any more than what we know. And so I believe that, you know, how do we get back to valuing the simple things? How do we value about saying thank you and yes, sir, and and good morning, and I appreciate, or I just thank you for just being you. This generation, this is my opinion. I've been an educator for 27 years, and if today is what our tomorrow look like, God bless America.
Exactly. Listen, y'all keep talking us. We're having a little technical difficulty on our end. Don't ask me.
I saw, you know, someone raised a really good point. We've been talking about trauma, but I think that we have to define what trauma is.
That's good.
And, you know, and so, you know, just a basic response is that, you know, definition is that it's an emotional response to a terrible event.
Yes.
And so if I've experienced rape, because, you know, those are things that happen to Black men that we don't talk about. Right.
Talk to us, Dr. Smith.
Or, you know, and so one of the things that ends up happening is we have Black men who have to grow up pretending like they don't know what's really going on, or they have to pretend like the events they have experienced have not impacted them. Right? And you know, and so the panel, we're a group of educated Black men. But I'll speak for myself and say that there are still moments as a result of things that I've even experienced in my own life that I have to kind of check myself, because I want to make sure, going back to what you said, you know, Dr. Tristan, you know, I don't want to come across as the angry Black man. I don't want someone else to misinterpret how I'm responding to either a situation or an event, or because I found myself triggered. You know, and I don't know about anybody else, but I find myself triggered sometimes in these corporate situations and these workspaces that I work in. You know,
come on.
You know, but that's just me. You know,
no, it ain't just you.
But I think that. Go ahead.
I just want to say, let me.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dr. Webster.
Go, Dr. Webster. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Webster.
Okay, I wanted to highlight really that triggering as something that's really, really important to hold on to. Anything that gets you triggered when you find yourself in a situation where you're kind of like, I don't know what's going on here, or you do know what's going on here, but it feels a little tense or something like that. There's a warning sign that it relates to something having to do with trauma. And let me just do something really quick here and add to a definition, because I think sometimes we get really sunk into the idea that for something to be traumatic, it has to be a big deal. And otherwise we have to suck it up because it wasn't really traumatic, right? The reality is, and this has not made it all the way through the psychology literature either. So I really hope we recognize this is kind of the cutting edge stuff from the top researchers on trauma are really talking right now about the fact that what trauma really is the inability to really resolve something that you have to deal with, right? It doesn't have to be this whole big, huge thing. It can just be not having the tools. And so, and sometimes it's just dealing with the same little thing over and over and over again, right? When you go into the store and you have to look to see where the security guard is, and you have to make that eye contact to say, I'm cool. And when you're leaving again and you're like, there's nothing in my hands because you didn't buy anything. You don't have the receipts, but I wasn't here to steal. That stuff right there as it compounds over time, not being able to really have the tools to deal with, man, I have to deal with this every day. That's a trauma. It's called small T trauma. You know, it's not the same as witnessing your near death or something like that, but it's trauma.
It's trauma nonetheless. Dr. Hill, you were going to say.
Yeah, so Dr. Webster, I'm so glad you said this. So when you talk about trauma, I have to admit, I was having a moment when I saw the flyer come up, even though I've seen them, Marty, but it was like it hit a different way. So we talk about trauma and we don't know how. Well, you talked about resolving it within ourselves. Let me tell you quickly about me. I didn't know how to resolve the trauma of losing my father unexpectedly. Watch this. When I saw this family and fatherhood, it kind of just hit me. My father, he didn't do anything wrong. He actually had a heart attack in an elevator going to another floor before they opened the doors. But the trauma of trying to get through that. And so this is what I did, Dr. Webster. I wound up, because I did not have the tools, no one taught me how to resolve it. It seems like it's a small thing, but it's a major thing. You can't say, okay, it is well with my soul that my dad unexpectedly died. What I recognized in myself, I needed help. And so I went to see a therapist, and the therapist walked me through the process of resolving it with myself. So while it may not be a big thing, but it is a bigger thing if we don't have the tools to actually resolve in ourselves about the trauma, about the loss of a loved one, or anything that we may have.
But Danielle, let me go here. Go ahead, Dr. Brown. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'm tying it back into what Dr. Webster was talking about with the stigmas. One of the biggest stigmas specifically for Black men when it comes to mental health and self-care is this stigma that self-care is not for us. We see, we are products of the culture in which we're bred. And our culture, our images, our families, our messages, our friends, we have all of these social media images, stories that tell us that self-care looks like white women in a bubble bath drinking wine. Self-care is not for me. Self-care is not for me, it's for her. And so we have a society.
That's good, Doc.
I hate to say this, but we have a society that genderized self-care away from us.
That's good. And then it's not even if it did, it's not for the Black man.
Right, exactly.
Dr. Smith, you were going to say?
It made me think of how, as children growing up, we were told that children were to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
So you think about these Black men who have grown up as children. So now you are a grown man, and the expectation is that you be seen but not heard. And so, I do a lot of work, in the religious community, with individuals who have dealt with religious trauma and things of that nature, because when we begin to talk about coping mechanisms and things that we as Black people have used, the faith community, the church has been a significant place. Black folks traditionally didn't go to therapists. We went to Big Mama, we went to the church, we went to extended family members. Listen, or you take it to God in prayer. But the problem with that is that we've had well-meaning individuals
Right.
minimize
Correct.
what our pain and our suffering has been, because they've not necessarily been equipped to help us walk through it.
Right.
And so what has happened is we've kind of spiritualized everything, right?
Mhm.
And so I'll give you a quick reference. You know, when I'm working with pastors, I had to tell, you know, a pastor that I was working with, because, you know, he had shared with me, you know, well, therapy is something for white people. You know, I have God. Okay, well, you know, but the first therapy session actually took place in the book of Genesis 3 and 9.
Come on.
When Adam had come into the knowledge that he had done something wrong, God asked him one simple question: Adam, where art thou?
Come on.
Therapy asks the same question.
Where you
Where
at?
are you?
There you go. Yeah. So let me just speak, right? I'm a whole pastor with a whole therapist.
Right.
Well,
And
praise
I
God.
am the man I am right now.
Right.
Because I found a new therapist
Right.
who helped me deal with the grief of losing my father
That's
2
right.
years ago unexpectedly.
Yes.
And I carried grief. And I just said yesterday, for the very first time,
Come
I
on.
feel like I am shifting from grieving to healing. And it is because I love Jesus and all of this stuff. But I'm very grateful for my therapist as well. It has caused me to make some decisions relationally and everything because I got a good therapist. And so I don't think that it's a dichotomy. If it is a dichotomy, it's a dumb dichotomy.
Right.
To think that it is either one or the
Dumb
other.
dichotomy. I love
But
it.
it's
I love
actually it's actually both and, right? So we
Yes.
don't want to rule out therapists because we
Yes.
certainly do need our therapists,
Yes.
good ones at
Good
that.
ones.
But we also don't want to rule out the church, right? But because we need them as well.
Yes.
And so it's really finding this alignment to what is going to help us become our full selves, you know. And I think stigma is in there, and that's just like, you don't do it, you just pray, be a strong man, or stop that crying, right? That's what we
Suck it
tell
up.
our little boys.
Yeah.
Stop crying, stop switching, stop doing all of these things. And I think that we sow seeds of dysfunction in our little boys that the culture then waters as we continue to matriculate through life.
Yes. Now, I know your journey, but as a result of going to seeing your therapist, what were you able to do yesterday that you would not have been able to do 2 years ago?
Yeah, yesterday I preached in my daddy's shoes. That's what I did.
That's right.
Before I had them, and I would just put them on, and I would just have this breakdown, and I wouldn't be able to wear them.
Right.
You know, and yesterday for the very first time, and I credit a lot of it, and I was praying and doing all of this stuff, but it was not until I went and saw my therapist that I really was able to kind of make sense of the grief.
That's right. So you then did a connected the spiritual with the psychological, which caused you to move differently in the physical.
100%.
Come on now. Let's move on.
Amen.
Y'all not ready. You're not ready.
Amen right there.
Amen right there. Right there. That's right. That's right. That's right. We had some more things that we wanted to deal with that.
Yeah. I want to do this. I want to go to Dr. Hill because Dr. Hill, you were talking about something in the pre-show.
Yes.
And Dr. Brown, you just alluded to that when you were really talking about being a product of our environment.
Yes.
And so we're still talking about stigmas, but I want you to share that with the men.
Absolutely. So in the pre-show, I was talking about sometimes we figure where trauma, stigma, all these things come from is that we only know what we know, right?
Right.
And so if the world is 100% of all knowing, if you just take a few seconds, say to yourself, how much of the world or how much do I know about everything? Just take a second. And that's people that's even online. How much do you know about everything? So let's say I come back and I say, I know 40% of everything there is to know. Watch this.
Right.
I know now 40%. But what happens is people don't even realize it. Your 40% becomes your 100% based on the actions that you have. So if you grew up in poverty, if you grew up without a father, if you grew up stealing, lying, cheating, all those things, then you become a product of that. And that becomes the 100% of what you know. So all I know is how to scratch and survive. All I know is how to live without the poverty level. All I know is just to do what it is that I need to do. Thus, we hinder ourselves when we don't take hold of new experiences or moving outside of our comfort zone. My story, I left Maryland. I'm an East Coast boy all day long. I live in Oakland, California, 3,196 miles away from in front of my house to where I live at now. And I learned so much about an educational system that I would be honest, East Coast schools never taught me. So now I can move my needle up. I know maybe about 60% more of education than I did before I moved. It's all about the experience and how you get out of that comfort zone to learn those things in which you don't know.
So Danielle, let me do this. Welcome to the West Coast, the best coast. So other than come on, you know what we.
Yeah, no, that's just fantastic. And so you set us up for another question that I want to ask the panel. I'm just going to throw it out there. How do we begin to kind of not just deal with the stigmas and the effect of stigmas in our day-to-day experience, but how do we experience these intentional, tangible things that we can incorporate in how we move so that what's happening around us doesn't seep on the inside of us, right? So we've got a bunch of folks that are watching. We've got a bunch of folks that are tuning in.
Yes.
What's a handle? What's a couple things that we can do to kind of create new experiences and new beliefs so that what's happening around us, because we can't change all of that, but we certainly can change what happens on the inside of us.
That's right.
You know, I'll start if you don't mind.
Come on, Dr. Brown.
As Black men, we have a tendency to hold on to this idea that our value lies in our physicality, sports, sex, fighting, physical labor, right? And so it pushes mental health down as a priority, right? We don't want other people to see that we need help. We don't let other people see that we're hurting. We don't let other people see our emotions. And so if I can offer, to me, the number one tip, all treatment and all self-care is confidential. Nobody has to know if you're not at that point yet. You just need to get help. You need to get help when you're hurting. You need to be vulnerable so you can share those emotions. And if you're not at the point yet, I say yet, because I think everybody will get there. But if you're not at that point yet where you can feel free to share publicly, then start by sharing privately.
That's good.
My suggestion is just start. Start somewhere.
Dr. Brown, can I? Because you have this amazing book that's when you shared that with me, and I think it speaks to that point. Starting somewhere. You have this book called Joker to King, and it's written for Black men, and you wrote it's initially for a family member, I believe. Talk to us why that book is so imperative and the point that you're making in doing that, because we got to start somewhere. And you started with a deck of cards. How can a deck of cards become a best-selling book? I need that. I need to know that.
Here's the short of it. I have a brother. He's the youngest. My father has 6 boys. I'm the oldest. My brother DJ's the youngest. And back when he was right before he was 21, he asked me for help. He spoke to me privately.
That's good.
Like I told you earlier, you seek out that one person confidentially.
Yes.
And he called me up like the day after Christmas, and he says, I need your help.
Yes.
He dropped out of a couple of colleges. He had a friend that was asking him to do something illegal and pick up this package in Mexico. And he was like, he called me up asking me, look, I need you to teach me how to be a man. Now, I never had that request before. He said, you teach math. You used to teach math. You teach English now. You're a teacher. Teach me how teach me how to be a man.
Yes.
And so I started thinking of it like a piece of curriculum. I asked myself, is it possible to actually put curriculum together to teach somebody how to be a man?
Right.
And so on his birthday, that following March, I gave him a deck of cards. I gave him I gave him an ace of spades. And I said, this is your first lesson, ace of spades. and stapled to that card was a lesson about integrity.
Huh.
I said, there's a homework assignment. You read this packet, do this assignment, and then next week I'm going to give you the 2 of spades. And then the next week at 3, there's 52 cards in a deck. There's 52 weeks
in a year.
You do this week by week.
Huh.
And then next year on your birthday, you will have assembled a deck of cards. You will have assembled 52 lessons.
On being a man.
And those lessons got categorized. So the diamonds were all the lessons on finance, resources, and money.
Yes.
The hearts were the lessons about relationships. The spades, those were the lessons on your internal growth. The clubs, those were the lessons on managing your environment, the outside world. Things like how to cook, things like how to travel,
Right.
And so he put those lessons together. And then this was a project that was only for him.
Right.
He told me, I got all these other friends of mine that need the same exact help. And that's when the light bulb came on and put him into a book.
That's strong.
Is that strong?
That's
because
strong.
how many of us could have benefited from something like that? And I'm going to turn this to Dr. Jackie Smith. Something like that. How many of other young men that you have come encounter with, or can I say it this way? Even grown men that you could have come encounter with that need practical. Because we talked about Dr. Webster talked about lack of resources. Now we have a practical resource for black men. Talk about some of the depravities that you're seeing and the lack of resource, even the lack of knowledge of how to access resources that you see and experience as for other black male clients.
Well, first and foremost, I'd love to be able to get a hold of, the book and the resource that it is that you just spoke about. But I want to touch upon something that you said. You said just start, and you said vulnerability.
Yes.
We have to first change the definition of vulnerability, especially with black men. Because vulnerability, when we think about it, in essence, we think about something that's weak. We've always attached weakness to being vulnerable, right? But vulnerability is actually having the ability to open yourself up and take a chance and take a risk. The problem is so many black men take so many risks on a day-to-day basis, but it's the wrong risk.
Yes, that's
and
good.
So we live in a culture and in an environment right now where you have the Me Too movement. There are protections that we have for women, but we don't have the same protections for men. And what I mean by that is culturally, we've not created the space that it is okay for you as a man to be vulnerable and to have emotions. The only emotion that we validate for men, particularly black men, is anger.
Correct.
And so the reason we validate that anger is because if we don't validate that anger, somebody else might get hurt, and it might be me, right? So I want to tell you, it's going to be okay. It's not as big as as you're making it. But the reality is, this has been bubbling up, right? This has been bubbling up. The majority of the men that I see in my practice are young black men. They either if they come from 2-parent households, they're being raised by men who are emotionally absent. So while you may be physically there and you are going out there every day and you're working, emotionally you're disconnected from your home. You're disconnected from your children, right? And so it's this, do as I say and not as I do. Well, the problem is we're perpetuating this generational cycle of broken men, right? Men who don't have the ability to communicate, men who don't even know how to get in touch with what they feel because it's never been validated.
Come on.
That's right.
And so, I appreciate this particular, platform because we have to remove the stigma, but we also have to remove the shame that comes with black men holding things that they're not responsible for.
Come on.
It's not your fault that your daddy up and left you.
Come on.
It's not your fault, and I commend the brother who said, teach me how to be a man. Because so many black men are going through life and they have so many different representations. It's like a hodgepodge of what they think a man is. And,
you're talking good, Dr. Smith.
We don't talk about how black men are exploited.
Come on.
Even in our own community.
Even in our own community. Girl, as long as he's tall, dark, and handsome, and he's sexy, and he can do this and so on and so forth. Okay, but when have you ever created a space for him to be vulnerable and to be safe where he can lay his head in
Right.
your lap and not
Correct.
feel like what he
Yes.
shares with you, you're going to use against
Use
him?
it against him. Correct.
Hmm. We
Correct.
had enough Delilahs in our own
Can I go back to?
community. Go ahead. Go ahead, Dr. Brown.
I was going to
Well,
kind
no,
of
I
tap
think
into.
that was Dr. Hill.
Dr. Hill, go ahead.
Go
Jump
ahead,
in there.
Dr. Hill. My apologies.
I was going to tap into something a little bit. Dr. Brown was talking about how his brother came and asked him, teaching him how to be a man. And one of the things that I've discovered in working with mentoring programs, being in a part of a Greek letter organization, that common sense is not common to everybody. And so what happened is we take the misnomer that these basic skills that we talk about are given to everybody. There's in my organization, there's a quote that we have that says, "Thou shalt seek knowledge through observing." So then I would put it back on the men that we are talking about, even ourselves. What are we observing? What are we putting into our systems? Are the things that we're internally taking in our system, does that help us to stop fighting against each other? And more importantly, does it help fighting against ourselves? I think our biggest battle is our internal struggles with ourselves, being accepted, being valued, being honored about who we are. And when we can't get to the place of understanding who we are, we're going to always fall in these deficits, gentlemen. I mean, we can talk. It sounds like we could talk forever, but if we don't understand who we are, just as a Black man living in a society that's always against us, we will never get to that place where we can have common sense in the everyday things.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? When we go in and we think about that, and I was struck by what it is that Dr. Brown said as well when he said, "Come teach me how to be a man."
A man.
That level of humility and vulnerability is very, very rare. Very seldom will we hear Black men who are told to be strong, who are told to be leaders, who are told to toughen up and to do all of these different things. Very, very seldom do we even feel comfortable enough going to, let alone another Black man, but anybody to say, teach me. And so I believe that really what lies therein is an opportunity. That if we were saying start somewhere, we go back to that famous saying, or the question rather, am I my brother's keeper? And so my challenge to the panel and my challenge to the brothers is that who are we teaching, right? And perhaps we don't know it all, but there are some things that we do know. And I think that it's incumbent upon us who do know to find someone in realizing that it may be difficult for them to ask to be taught, but to say, here, let me teach you this. Let me show you this. Without coming across like kind of haughty, like I got it all together, but say, yo, man, I ain't got it all figured out, but I'm working this thing. Like this daddy thing, I ain't got it perfect, but I'm pretty good at it. Check this out, dog. Let me teach you and let me show you this. And I think that if we were able to kind of create what I call this manifested momentum that's really fueled through us initiating it and saying, bro, I see you're struggling in this space right here. Dog, this how you talk to her. Dog, this what you do with your children. Now, this may work and it may not work, but we'll figure out something. And while you figure it out, I'm going to be there with you. If we do that, I think that sets the stage for that question to be asked by so many more people.
That's right.
As you were saying that, two questions posed to me. It's a statement. First of all, John Maxwell says it this way: leadership is influence. So who do we have, first and foremost, influence over? And then the second part of that, we talked about this whole safety. You know, we cannot escape the fact, do we have safety even among each other?
Come on, man. Talk. Talk, brother.
Do we have safety? Oh, Dr. Smith, was that your laughter?
Yes, sir.
Talk to me,
man.
And Danielle Hill, you're gonna come behind.
Because now you gonna blow up the whole show by asking, do we have safety
amongst each
brothers?
other? Amongst brothers. And
Well,
Dr. Smith, talk to me. Go ahead, Dr. Hill.
I'm sorry. This just kind of hit me. So, John Scott, when you were talking, so your approach is really great. And when you talk about safety in what we do, there can be safety in what we do if we're demonstrating that which we actually want to for these people to catch on? Do we provide a space that, okay, I'm not going to tell you, hey, I see you struggling in this, but let me just kind of create a space where you can come in, and even if you don't come and say it, I'm going to be intentional about what I do. Watch this. That's where it comes from the most. Being intentional. I think that we got at least 100 years of education on this call. Can we take that time and be intentional about creating a space for these young boys that come behind us?
Come on.
It's not okay.
To
Wear our pants sagging. It's not okay.
Come on.
B-I-T-C-H. It's not okay by my demonstration. The Bible talks about our witness. And what is your witness? What does your witness say? And I'll leave it. Okay, I'm sorry.
See, these preachers,
so that's the
in.
truth, right?
Yeah.
And so even in that space, sometimes what I've learned is you just bring them close enough.
Wait a minute,
You know,
Dr. Smith, don't you try it.
You know what? Look,
Look,
I didn't have a white sheet, so I had to use what I.
That's a Pentecostal Kojic, folks.
But when the trauma has created this posture in us to kind of Heisman everybody.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
That's good.
I think the opportunity to teach without using words is to drop the Heisman and maybe bring them in.
That's good.
Because perhaps we don't have the language to accurately teach. And to be honest, sometimes we don't want to be taught because we're tired of people telling us what to do. But if we've got
John Scott and Dr. Brown, can you back me up on this? I hope this is the same thing for you. What I have found as an educator, I promise you, 9 times out of 10, especially our Black boys, they just want somebody to listen to them.
Yeah.
Are we open to listen? I can be in a classroom, I can be in my office, and I can sit somewhere, or I can just be in a space. And if I make myself available just to listen, you'll learn everything that you want to know by just giving them that opportunity to just listen.
Yes.
Well,
Come on.
Two things about that. Number one, there's a whole lot of educators that say, I'm going to have the classroom where you can ask me anything you want, but then they create an environment that's hostile and nobody wants to be
so good.
So we can say, come to me. But if we don't do within ourselves what we need to do to be engaging in ourselves, if we don't speak with integrity, if we don't walk with integrity, then nobody's going to want to ask us in the first place. Now, one of the things, I used to work at a college that was a predominantly white college. And I was one of the only Black men there. Period. Student, janitor, faculty member. I was one of the only Black men there. And so I made it a point to meet every Black student. My job,
that's good.
For the first week of class, I'm going to go and just say hi and introduce myself to every Black student, male and female, and everybody in between, and just say, I'm Dr. Brown. That's where my office is. I got chocolate and chessboards and records. You come find me.
Coffee.
And that's it. That's it.
Right.
And I became known as the guy with the chocolate in his office. And people just, you need a granola bar, you need water bottle, Dr. Brown.
Yes.
And then that's all it takes sometimes. And people would just come by, hey, I don't know you, you don't know me, I just came for the chocolate. They come for the chocolate. Then the next time, hey, you know what? You mind if I sit?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself, what am I doing to make people more engaged, to want to come talk to me in the first place, right?
Come on.
Yeah. Dr. Webster, go ahead, Dr. Smith.
What came to me really quickly was, can I trust you?
There you go.
There you
go. So
safety,
especially safety with Black men. I don't know how many times I have a Black man come into my office, and it's like we have to go through this testing period, almost like I'm being hazed, because I have to prove that I don't have an ulterior motive with you coming into my office and sitting here and me listening to you. And so how do you create a sense of safety? Because if all I know from a man is that you're going to exploit me, because the last man who told me to trust him,
my God,
did some things to me that you don't do when you put your trust in somebody,
Right.
what makes you different. You know, growing up in middle school, my middle school principal, Mr. James Taylor, was the only black principal that I had ever had, only black teacher that I had ever had growing up in the San Francisco Unified School District. And he took an interest in me. And there was something about this well-dressed man who came to work every day in a suit. I don't care what was going on. If it was referee day, this man was refereeing in a suit. And I said, you know what? I want to be like him. That man took time out with me, taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me how to be a man, you know. And going back to what Dr. Hill said, it was his witness.
Come on,
and see,
man.
it wasn't just Mr. Taylor, you know, in the school grounds. If he saw us out in the community, Mr. Taylor would pull his car over. What are you doing? Get home. You know, we have stopped parenting our communities. We've taken this approach that as long as mine is okay, me and mine, then I'm good.
Right.
And then the rest of us, you know,
fend for yourself.
Fend for yourself.
Yeah. Dr. Webster, I saw you nod your head a lot earlier, like in the amen corner. So talk to us about that whole safety. What you were saying. What was going through your mind through all that? You're hearing. Y'all, I told you this is gonna be powerful tonight. I told y'all this is gonna be powerful. Y'all didn't believe me.
And it's just
we're trying to earn our keep. That's all.
Right. And this is just Monday night. Opening. Dr. Webster, talk to us.
There are two layers that were going through my mind at that time. In particular, what I was thinking, just because, hey, you know, I'm a psychologist, so where's my brain going to go but psychology? What do we do as therapists?
That's good.
Truly, I mean, the answer may not be very well known by our culture in general, because this is not the thing that we're really into, right? But what do we do primarily as therapists? Any therapist will tell you, create a safe space.
That's right.
That is what the essential, and I mean, there's so much research on it. The most critical factor in successful therapy is the ability to create a safe space, right? And so really, as we're talking about how it is that we can help other people start to get through these stigmas and start to really move through, you know, really thinking about how it is that we can generate these safe spaces, that really is the critical thing. Yeah. The other thing, and you know, I don't know if I want to bring this up right now because I feel like we might pull the topic in a different direction, but I was also sort of thinking about, it feels like a lot of what we're talking about right now really is that. How do we create space? Which means that we generate something for somebody else to come and benefit from what it is that we are producing, right? That is other people's way to manage to move through and become more vulnerable and go ahead and, you know, face these stigmas and say, you know what, it's going to be all right. Let's explore doing something in a different way. What I feel like we have not answered yet, and I think we really need to get there, is what about you though? Yeah. How do you actually start to move yourself in that sort of direction? And especially going back to what I already said earlier, not everybody's going to have access, right? I would love for every person in the world, but especially minorities and especially blacks, right, to go to therapy, to get the tools. How many have insurance? And, you know, there are therapists, I want to put this out there, therapists oftentimes have sliding scale spots where you can pay whatever it is that you can pay. So that's important to know. Get out there, try it. And that testing period that was just mentioned, if you feel like you got a test, go for it. We're used to it. Do it.
Can I throw this quick resource out there? You know, you said how many have insurance. I just got, I'm registered with Therapy for Black Men. They emailed and said they had over $40,000 and some for black men who don't have any type of coverage, that they have a grant out there right now. Therapyforblackmen.com that will give black men free therapy, and they will definitely get you connected to a therapist and pay for it. So and so I want to share that because a lot of times we don't know about resources, access to that. There's a great resource right there. Therapy for Black Men. They're giving, thank you so much, Daryl. They're giving free therapy, and they're getting more and more grants because they recognize the seriousness and the importance of black men getting professional help. And since we're on there, Dr. Webster and Dr. Smith, can you guys explain, let's take away some of the stigmas about what therapy is all about. What is therapy? Is it you telling them what to do? What is therapy? Dr. Webster, and then I'm going to ask Dr. Smith to come behind there and talk to us. What is therapy? Because if we don't know what it's about, how can I access something I really don't understand?
What's interesting is there's a bunch of different approaches to what therapy is, right? But there is therapy, which is distinct from counseling a little bit, which is distinct from coaching. All these are different things, right? So you can go to a coach, and it's a really more informal sort of relationship, and they'll tell you a lot more about, well, I'd really think about doing it this way, versus therapy, which is really talking about, where do you think you learned that from? Is that really working for you? Okay, what else is it that we can do in this sort of situation to try to find another way through? Therapy is really about providing you keys and perspectives to try to find your way through what it is that's going on for you. So it's really not a bunch of do this, do that, all that different stuff. Again, about creating the space. We're trying to create the space so that you can understand what has happened and what you need in order to make something else to be the case. And what it is that you actually want to be different. Because a lot of times we don't even know that bit. It's like, well, this is all I've ever known. It's fine, whatever, I deal with it.
Yeah. Dr. Smith. Therapy.
I completely agree. For me, it's a journey, right? It really is, for some people, it's a conversation. It's just having someone there to listen. I don't give advice. What I do is I try to empower my clients so that they feel empowered to be able to make their own choices. And one of the things that I tell them is, well, we're here in this therapy room, in this space, we can explore and talk about anything that you want to talk about without the obligation of you doing anything differently. Because so many times people have been pressured into doing so many things that they didn't want to do, that therapy creates a space that's safe where you can explore it, you can talk about it. You're not going to be judged about it. And what? If you don't want to change, when the session is over, you can pick yourself up and leave, and you can leave the same way you came if that's what you choose to do. But you don't have to leave the same way that you came if you make the choice and the decision to say, I want to do something different. And I know that for a lot of my clients, it really is about just having the space.
That's right.
Just having the space where I can go and not be judged. I had a client tell me on Friday, we've been working together for a year, but you're the only person that I actually have in my life who will tell me the truth.
That's good.
And tell you the truth without any ulterior motives attached to it. What I want for you is I want you to be the best version of yourself. But for many people, especially Black men, they don't know what the best version of themselves is because they don't even know who they are.
Come on, talk to us.
And what have they seen too, right? How much access do we have to seeing different things out there when we're limited in our little bubbles oftentimes, right?
Yes.
We know the people that we know, and we know what they've been through, and we know what's gone on with them. And oftentimes it's repeating stories, right? Because we're entrenched in this culture. We haven't really talked about what culture is, but we bring it up a lot, right?
That's good.
What culture is, let me define this really quick. What culture is a set of tools that a group uses to solve everyday problems, right? So let's talk about making tea, right? To boil the water, somebody's going to make a pot, somebody's going to use an electric kettle, somebody's going to use a kettle on the stove, and you go different places around the world. What they know to heat the water, that is part of their culture. That is the tool that they've learned. So, we lean a lot on, well, this is what the culture is. Really think about that and what that means in terms of these are the bits and pieces of information that I've gotten that have shaped how I view the entire world. And then really start looking at, okay, what else is actually out there then beyond this? Not to say that it's good or bad or anything like that, but just understanding what more there actually is.
And that I have choice. And that I have choice.
That's important.
And I think that goes back to our key about educating, equipping, and empowering. The choice is the empowerment.
Yeah. And it creates a sustainable model, right? Because it's something that I chose. And so accountability becomes more real and sustainable at that juncture. I've got a question that I'm going to ask the panel, and we can actually go one by one. There's been this common theme where we've talked about a safe space, and we've talked about therapy being a safe space. But I actually would like to bring it more so on really how you initiated that from a brother to brother, or from a husband to wife, or a partner to partner, or a cousin to cousin, or a homie to homie. When we are in need of a safe space, for the brothers that's tuning in right now, twofold. One, they will be the safe space. And then two, they will need a safe space.
Oh, that's good.
In your experiences, and this is for the whole panel, and we'll start with Dr. Hill, what should we be looking for? What are those core tenets that make up this safe space, if I'm looking for it or if I'm looking to be a safe space? Let's start with you, Dr. Hill.
So two things that so I'll use what I use. I can't speak holistically, but for me, what I do is I use first spirit of discernment, because I got to understand the dynamics of the space that I'm in. And then I am a person that's big on having the spirit of presence. I don't overshadow what's happening in a particular space, but if my countenance, if the energy, if the peace that I have, if it's exuding when I'm around you, then that automatically, for me, creates a safe space for people, because my presence should speak more than what I have to say to you to get you to come over into my little bubble.
That's good. That's good.
That's real good.
Let's go, Dr. Brown. Same question.
Well, I work a lot with college students. You know, the age group is usually 18 to 25, maybe a little older. And so I'm working a lot with students who are reluctant to speak up. Sometimes they just left high school. They're not sure about being an adult. They're not sure about their way in the world. And so they're often reluctant to speak up in the first place. And I hear what you're saying, John Henry, about the need to create a safe space and the need for us to recognize a safe space for ourselves to go to. Now, I spend so much time creating a safe space for others. Sometimes I need to remember myself that I need to have a safe space. I need my own network. But when it comes to creating a safe space for other people, there are some things that I start with every single semester. Okay. We start first with, tell me your name and tell me just one word. Pronounce your name for me so I know how to pronounce it, and tell me one word to describe how you're feeling right now. Now, those kind of questions are great on the first day because they're low anxiety, they're low pressure.
Right.
I can tell my name. I can tell one word, and we start there because we got to start somewhere. For me, I have to have the students doing a whole lot more talking than I do by the time the class is over. They got to get to the point.
That's good.
They got to get to I got to get them to the point where they know that I'm listening more than I'm speaking.
That's good.
Wow.
Does that help a little bit?
Totally. 100%.
That helps a lot.
100%. Let's go to Dr. Jackie.
Boundaries are important to me. And so one of the ways that I think that you establish yourself as a safe space is that people are very clear about what your boundaries are. And one of the things that I share with my clients is that boundaries teach others how to treat you, right? We live in a day and age now where nothing is sacred. So if I talk to you, am I going to find my conversation on social media because, you need to get a few likes and you need to get some people's, opinions? Can I trust that what I share with you, right? Let's talk about non-therapeutic environment. If we're friends, can I trust that what I'm sharing with you is going to remain between you and I?
That's
right.
Good.
And as a friend, it doesn't necessarily mean that you agree with everything that it is that I say, but you care enough about me to tell me the truth. I learned at a very young age that a friend is somebody who won't lead you into danger.
Come on.
And I think that, as Black men, we have so many different things that we're battling on a day-to-day basis, and we're fighting. I don't need to fight with my brothers. What I need is a safe space to be able to say, this is what I'm going through. If I'm struggling in my marriage, I need you to hear me, right? You may not know what to say, but I need to know that I can come and talk to you, right? And if the only thing that you can say to me is, you know what, I'm here for you, or, man, I'm going to pray for you. I don't know what to do, but just know, that I'm here for you. So setting boundaries, being consistent, right?
Come on.
I think that the key word is being consistent.
Come on.
Because if all I know is the inconsistency in a man, how can I trust you? Because I don't know what version of you I'm going to get from day to day.
You touched on something right there, but I'm not going to touch on it. Dr. Webster.
So,
How about to lose your moderator?
So I think thinking about the safe space and looking at it from 2 points of view, how it is that you create a safe space, how it is that you find a safe space, something that I was going to say earlier, by the way, about, people maybe might not be able to find access to a professional who can be there to keep you, to keep that safe space for you, start experimenting and push a little bit to see what it is that you can share with other people and find a spot that's okay, right? That's that, right? What you're looking for, though, in a safe space, I think, is I want to boil down to 4 tenets. Be that person or find that person that can actively listen, right? So active listening is really they're engaged. They don't have a bunch of other stuff going on. You can tell that they are there with you, right? Ideally, if they're mirroring what it is that you're saying or what it is that you're doing, you have that sync, right? That's active listening. So that's one thing, right? The next is being curious. So I think one thing that gets in the way oftentimes is people really listen to respond instead of, and they really want to talk about look, this is what I know, this is what I got, whatever, let me throw all this stuff at you. Not really listening to just be like, oh man, so what is that? What's that about? And that difference right there really changes a lot in terms of how deep you can actually go and what's safe enough to get there, right? The next is reverence. So, and that really came from Dr. Hill really talking about, or no, I think it was actually Dr. Smith talking about, things being sacred, really taking that moment to sit with yourself and think, how is it that I'm going to treat this information? What am I going to do with it? Taking it seriously is a big deal. A lot of people, going back to the stigmas right here, right? A lot of people don't want to be bothered, right? Because what does it mean when you're actually bothered with something, right? That kind of engagement it can be a bit uncomfortable because that right there is like, oh, okay, so we're really going to go there, right? Me and this other dude right here are getting really deep right now. Like, what does that mean? Right. And that type of stuff really starts to, freak people out. But if you can sit with that for a second, just be like, this is important and just let it be that. That's important. And the last piece, empathy. Probably the most crucial piece of all of the above is really empathy. So really what empathy is distinct from sympathy. Empathy is really being able to stay within yourself, but see what another person's point of view is and where it is that they're coming from. If you can take the time to really try to understand what is their experience with what it is that they're communicating to you, then that right there, just taking that time to hear that, or if you're on the receiving end when you're looking for that, knowing that that is heard and they're really trying to imagine, wow, okay, I see where you come from with that. That is a big deal in safe spaces. And that can be so transformative, just that right there.
Love that. Love that. We have a question that we want to address real quick that was up there. Now, I'm far away from. Can you read it? Cause
I can read it.
So glad you can.
The question is, what % of successful white men consent to sharing confidential information with a black male therapist? Our life experience may be foreign to a white therapist. please recognize how unique this panel of black men is. So again, the question for the panel is, what percent of successful white men consent to sharing confidential information with a black male therapist? For the therapists out there?
Sure. Dr. Smith, let's talk to you first, and then Dr. Webster.
Well, I don't know what percentage, but what I can tell you is that I have white men that I see. And one of the most interesting things that I see in working with my Caucasian, clients is that they said that they wanted a perspective outside of their own, and so they wanted someone who had to actually listen. I think that, the short answer point is many times as people of color, we can be very easily, our boundaries can be blurred if we're not careful, because we can become so common that we turn in and we minimize someone else's experience because we're filtering it through the eyes of our own lived experience. And so, as a black man, even though we have a panel of other black men on here, maybe the only thing that we have in common is the fact that we identify as black men, but we don't have shared experiences, right? We may not have a shared belief system. And so, as I said, I can't speak to what percentage of successful white men, but I can tell you that the white men that I'm counseling are very successful white men who could go and get any therapist that it is that they wanted, but they wanted someone who didn't look like them and someone who wasn't going to give them a cookie cutter, response and answer. Because at the end of the day, what makes me authentic as a therapist is I'm still myself.
Yes. Yes. Day in and day out. Dr. Webster.
So I think that captures just about everything that I would want to say. So if I was going to add anything to that, I just want to say one thing that's really important. I think that people do overestimate the importance of the lived experience of the person who's sitting on the other side of the room. That happens really, really often. Let me give one example of one of my clients, not a white client, but anyway, but one of my clients before asked me, have you ever smoked crack? I haven't, so no. And his whole thing was, well, then you can't help me. That's it, point blank. That was it, right? And the thing that we really have to realize is the thing that we are trying to do as therapists really isn't like, try to get all up in your head and understand every single little detail. Because again, empathy, not sympathy. We don't need all the little things. We don't need to share absolutely every detail of what it is that's going on, right? What it is that we really need is the ability to understand where it is that you're coming from. That doesn't require our past experience to match your past experience. In fact, if it's too well aligned, it can be a problem.
Yes.
And that can actually be reason to refer out. So really, just to sort of wrap up that answer, I've had plenty of clients of all different races, white included, black included, and the entire thing that I think is my job in that instance is to really bring to them an understanding of their own experience in the world. Now, does my blackness help in some of those instances? Probably, but that is only critical to those who really make it critical themselves. And so
that's great.
It's kind of,
so good.
And if I can just even share my experience, what happens a lot of times too, I'm in alignment with both of you, and I've had several white men reach out to me because I was a black therapist, a black male therapist, and they, like Dr. Smith has said, they wanted a different opinion. I even had one who was actually extremely racist with me and said, well, I don't like black people, black men, and what are you going to do, and then what can you help me? I said, well, I don't like ignorance, so we're very even, so let's start the session. And I became his, he came at me, I'm going to come back at him, and then I'm going to give fact for fact. That was his personal fact, and my personal fact was I don't like ignorance. And so I became his favorite therapist, and I couldn't shake and get rid of him. I'm like, well, we have completed the goals that we have done. So,
Brother Marty, was you a little triggered?
I was, right,
just a little bit,
just a touch, just a touch,
all the time.
It's the stigma of black men clapping back. You say something to me, I gotta say something to you.
Oh, but I said it in the most professional What?
As a therapist would.
Listen, we have had, man, I can't believe, listen, our time is up. We could start this. Gentlemen, you know what? This has been great. And I think this conversation has to continue. And somehow we're going to continue this dialogue. And I don't know what it's going to look like. But audience, this is not going to be the last that you've seen of these brothers, because I think we've just barely scratched the surface. I would say pass the offering plate, because we're going to need some more funding, because these gentlemen have very high ticket price values, and they deserve it. They deserve it, because we're not going to minimize what we do as well. Yes. Don't you speak in tongue on here. But let's start here. How can we get a hold of you, and what are whether it's social media, your business professional pages with that, and how can people get a hold of you? Dr. Brown, how can we get a hold of you, and where can we find Joker to King at? Because we all need a copy of that book.
JokerToKing.com or my name, Robert Daylin Brown. My middle name is Daylin, Daylin. So if you type Robert Daylin Brown anywhere on the internet, you will find me. RobertDaylonBrown.com.
Love that. And Dr. Brown, you're going to be with us on Friday evening at the live event in Norco, and you will have copies of your book there too for purchase. Am I correct?
That is correct.
And Dr. Brown will definitely give you a signed copy of that. Check out the website. Check out the Black Men Made Well on this YouTube channel. You could definitely see where we're going to be at on Friday night in the city of Norco. Dr. Brown will have copies of that book there that he will be signing and selling. How much is it going to cost if we buy it directly from you on that evening?
I keep it simple, $20. But
love it.
But there's sliding scales. I want the information to get out there. So if you don't have $20, come by and get the book anyway.
Now, if you got $20, don't come by and give me the hookup. We got to stop hooking folk up. That's able.
The information needs to get out there.
Will you take an EBT? I'm sorry. Dr. Hill, how do we get a hold of you? Dr. Hill. I'm just saying, I'm asking for the brother that got an EBT card.
But whose name
Hill.
is it in? Whose name is it in? Is it in your name, or did you buy it from somebody?
No, sir. Right. Okay. Dr. Hill.
You can find me on Facebook or email me, danielhill@gmail.com. But Mike, I want to make sure I want to give, because I've been a part of panels like this and I've been to discussions, and one of your next to your last slide is so important about how do we move forward, because I have 4 points that I want to give. I mean, I'll give everybody a chance, but if we could circle back, because I just have 4 things that can definitely help us move forward after this conversation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Hill. Dr. Smith, Dr. Jackie Smith.
I can be found at smithlcsw.com or Dr. Jackie on Instagram. And I don't take EBT, but I do have a side account. My card reader went down, so I'm not able to.
Card reader went down. Love that. That's great. Dr. Webster, how do we get a hold of you?
So I got to be a little careful right now, because I am still employed by LA County, which means that I don't have direct clientele that I can actually take at this time. My private practice is not up yet, but
come on over to MarcelConsulting.com.
There you go.
Never heard that before.
I've been trying to hire Dr. Webster, but he don't want to come over just yet. We need a black male psychologist over here.
We're working it out.
We're working it out.
Psychologytoday.com is a great resource for finding therapists.
Yes.
Definitely, once I do get back into private practice, which is an inevitability, it will be happening. You will definitely be able to find me on there.
Love that. Dr. Hill, we're going to circle back to you.
Yeah.
All right, so we talked about so many things, and I think a couple of things that I've heard tonight. We talked about stereotypes, trauma, stigma, and safe space. And so a lot of times people will hear this, but I'm one of those practical persons. Okay, so tomorrow when I wake up, or tonight when I'm done, what is my next step? And so kind of put these in an order that kind of help us. One, we have to acknowledge.
Yes.
Acknowledge, where we are. Who are we? What's this thing? What's this place that we're in? Even in the pandemics of life right now, between COVID, Black Lives Matter. I mean, so many pandemics we're dealing with. And then the second one is accepted. People, okay, I'll do, because I feel like I'm in church. I have gone through life sometimes not accepting the reality of certain things in my life. So we got to get to the place of acceptance. And the third thing is resolve it. Okay, you've accepted it, you've acknowledged it. Now, are you going to resolve the place where you are? And the last one, which is so important, is start to work. Start the work. We have great people on this call. We have given advice, suggestions, recommendations, and contact information that if you want to start the work, reach out to somebody. It says nothing about you, good, bad, or indifferent. If you don't, if you want to see a therapist, it doesn't even have to be a therapist. If you have a Dr. Brown in your school, I'm talking to you.
Right.
Stop by and get some chocolate in the conversation.
Come on.
If you decide you're in San Francisco and I'm at the school that I won't name, and you just need a presence, an ear to hear. Do it. I think that's the most tall-telling one, because we can get all of these tools, but then we don't want to do no work. So it's not always the white man. It ain't always everybody else. It's what you're doing with yourself.
I fully agree. He just really set up.
I know. He came out to the closing.
He set the whole thing up.
Yeah.
I was gonna just tell a story about if you're homeless and I buy you a brand new house and give you the keys, but if you never use the keys, you're gonna still be homeless, even though I just gave you a brand new house.
Right.
But
tell it.
He's got the keys to. We're
trying
to give him the keys to the kingdom. What'd you say, Dr. Hill?
I wasn't trying to go to church, but it's so essential that we just do the work.
Yeah.
Appreciate the doxology. I appreciate the doxology right there.
Right. Look, the preachers is doing this.
I'm sorry.
It's great.
Listen, John Henry, have we had an amazing time tonight?
Man, let me tell you, when we started planning this, literally about 2 months ago, we only could have imagined. We knew the impact that we would have.
That's right.
But to be able to bring content, tools, conversations, exposure at this caliber is very, very rare. And that's coming from I've been around a couple places on this earth, and I don't think that I've been part of a panel of this caliber of people who
I agree.
I have been equally impressed and also strengthened by.
Yes.
So if that's me, I know everybody else is.
That's right.
Also,
that's right.
Very grateful.
This is just Monday night, y'all. You heard the doxology to acknowledge, to accept, to resolve, and to start the work. And we can start the work. We want to give you some acknowledgement. Listen, you heard from Dr. Jackie Smith. Listen, MarcelConsulting.com. We are here to support you in your therapy needs. Black Therapy for Black Men, another amazing resource. Psychology Today, another resource. And also Good Therapy, other resources that are there. But remember, Therapy for Black Men is offering free therapy to those black men who don't have access currently that needs it. And we want to make sure you have the tools that are necessary to further along in this journey.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I would encourage all of the viewers who's on right now is to share this broadcast.
That's right.
Text it to somebody.
That's right.
Send it to someone.
That's right.
This can start a conversation that I know for a fact can save somebody's life.
That's right. And we can make a global impact right here tonight. Share the link. Don't keep this information. We share negative information, but we never share positive. Here's a chance to change the dynamics and the trajectory of that by sharing this with 10 people if everyone on here shared with 10 people, imagine the impact. And they share it with 10 people, and they share it with 10 people. That's exponential growth right there.
Let's go.
Yes.
Fibonacci.
Yes, let's go. As we're doing that. Again, tomorrow night, join us tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, as we're going to be doing from yelling to yoga. We have the gurus himself, Dre Gardner, the yoga guru himself, James Dat Yoga Dude, and also Harley Curtis, that yoga king, that's going to be with us. 3 black male yogis that are going to be. I'm excited too. I'm excited. This is just the beginning. Again, thank you so much. Like and share. Panelists, we cannot thank you enough. But again, as I always say, we don't have to continue to secretly suffer in silence in the shadow of shame, but we have to speak up, speak out, and live. Until tomorrow night, y'all. God bless.
Peace out. God bless everybody.
Take care.